Welcome back to the third episode of Worst Gaming Cards. Today we're going to take a look at the first 3D accelerator from Trident, named 3DImàge 9750. This card arrived in the market later than competitive products, and for a much lower price. So now we're going to find out why it didn't become a popular low-cost alternative. But first, as before, let's talk a bit about the company's history. Trident Microsystems was a Californian company founded in 1987. Trident's market focus were cheap desktop and notebook graphics chips, as clearly indicated by the company's slogan, Digital Media for the Masses. The mysterious VGA chip named TVGA8200LX was probably Trident's first product. Sadly, it looks like not even a single specimen survived till this day, because we couldn't find a single photo of this card or chip. So if you have one, please upload a photo of your card somewhere, or knowledge of this card will be lost forever. In 1988, the now also quite rare TVGA8800BR followed suit with a maximum supported 512 kilobytes of memory. In the next year, these chips were replaced by the more common TVGA8800CS, used on cards with support for legacy EGA monitors. Between the years 1990 and 1992, many submodels of the SVGA chip named TVGA8900 were released, supporting a maximum of 1 MB of memory. Also, in 1991, the ultra-low-cost TVGA9000 line of chips appeared, supporting a maximum of only half a meg of memory. This line of products was phased out in 1994, with the release of the TVGA9000i-3. The mainstream 8900 line was updated in 1993 with model TVGA9200CXR supporting up to 2 MB of memory and Visa Local Bus, or VLB for short. Within the same year, the TGUI9400CXI was also announced, with the same enhancements over predecessor chipsets, but this chip was also a 32-bit GUI accelerator. And yeah, the chip's naming schemes only became more complicated as time went on. In 1994, updated chips were released with PCI bus and EDO memory support. Two product lines were established, the cheaper 32-bit TGUI9440 and the more powerful 64-bit TGUI9440 AGI. The 64-bit line of chips continued next year with models TGUI 9660, 9680, and 9682. All of them supported 4 MB of memory. However, 9680X models also provided video acceleration. In 1996, only one chip was released. The ProVideo 9685 arrived with a new product line naming and TV out support. And finally, in October 14, 1996, Trident's first 3D chip was announced, the 3DImàge 9750, using the company's arcade 3D technology. Unfortunately, cards based on this chip hit the market in June 1997, about a year later than competitive 3D accelerators from most other vendors. Jaden, a third-party manufacturer, praised 3DImàge for its price-to-performance ratio and also greatly underestimated gaming industry requirements. Jaden's senior director of graphics marketing said the following: "The gaming industry has been frustrated by existing 3D hardware solutions. The boards are either outrageously expensive or remain unable to deliver the minimum 15 frames per second capability required for a 3D game." Looks like someone greatly reduced expectations for their own product. 15 frames per second for a 3D game? Really? These tremendous performance numbers could be achieved thanks to the 64-bit engine with AGP support, 83 or 100 MHz SG-RAM memory, and integrated triangle engine offloading 3D scene computing from the CPU. The 9750 also supports DVD acceleration and TV out. Sadly for users, most manufacturers release their cards greatly underclocked, with clock speeds ranging from 50 to 75 MHz, and some even using older EDO memory. Luckily, in our collection we found a higher clocked card at 91 MHz. With 4 MB of SG-RAM memory and HEP1X support, it should be a representative example of what this chip can pull off. The 9750 supports only Direct3D, and the recommended price in 1997 was only $129 US. The card will be compared to a Diamond Monster 3D using the 3DFX Voodoo graphics chipset with 4 MB of EDO memory clocked at 50 MHz. In games with texture bugs, the Voodoo 1 will be replaced by an STB Velocity 128 using the NVIDIA Riva 128 chip with 4 MB of memory clocked at 100 MHz. Final Reality, unlike with the Verge and Mystique, detects all expected hardware features. That's a bonus point for the 3DImàge. Also, we are no longer plagued by sound issues. Sadly, the frame rate is often too close or even below the promised 15 frames per second. .3DImàge produces very low scores in the race test, but a quite promising fill rate. The 3DImàge attempts to render all textures for a few seconds, but gives up really fast and ends up without any of them, much like the Matrix Mystique. The only game in our tests that ends up looking good even on the Verge and the Mystique, Tomb Raider 2, shows the first serious problems of the 3DImàge 9750. The helicopter blades and water transparency are not working, and textures look unfiltered, like they did with the Mystique. Forsaken is playable only in 320 to 240 and clearly shows poorly filtered textures. This is visible mostly on fire explosion effects. Carmageddon 2 is just too slow to be playable. There's no official 3DImàge 9750 mini GL driver or wrapper for GLQuake, and the unofficial D3D2 OpenGL wrapper created by Techland wouldn't work, so we ended up using an official D3D2 OpenGL wrapper for S3 cards. That probably explains the yellow full screen effects. Once again, the game is too slow and plagued by flickering wall textures. Oh well, it was kind of a long stretch anyway. Turok looks good for the most part, but is really slow and the skybox is not rendered properly. Croc is relatively fast, but textures again look almost unfiltered, and the interface produces some transparency errors. Incoming showcases nicely all of the issues you may encounter with the 3DImàge. It's too slow, has poorly filtered textures, a flickering skybox, and transparency errors at every explosion effect. Half-Life works in direct 3D mode, but is plagued by flickering wall textures until the card eventually gives up all texturing pretenses and turns the whole game into a snow blindness simulator.
The time is 8:47 a.m. Current topside temperature is 93 degrees, with an estimated high of 105. The Black Mesa compound is maintained at a pleasant 68 degrees at all times. This train is inbound from Level 3 dormitories to Sector C test labs and control facilities. If your intended destination is a high security area beyond Sector C, you will need to return to the Central Transit Hub in Area 9 and board a high security train. If you have not yet submitted your identity to the retinal clearance system, you must report to Black Mesa personnel for processing before you will be permitted into the high security branch of the transit system.
Wipeout is actually quite fast compared to most other tested games. The only perceivable issue is the non-transparent trees near the track. Expendable suffers from a low frame rate and broken textures, similar to how the Voodoo 1 renders on fast CPUs.
Warning, intruder alert. All personnel must evacuate.
Wake up, Trident! You're in some serious shit. We're bugging out now. We're bugging out now. The doors are on you now. Get your ass to the comms room and I'll brief you from there. Get your ass to the comms room and I'll brief you from there.
Aliens vs. Predator clearly showcases issues with transparency in text boxes, and features minor image quality problems with flares. And yeah, it's also pretty slow. As always, the hardest test is the last one. Will it run Unreal? The game actually runs in Direct 3D mode, and for the first 3 seconds, it looks promising. But then, the 9750 goes into textureless mode in a vain attempt to increase the frame rate. It is unable to finish the time demo, as it freezes right before the end. There's only one positive thing we can say about Trident's 3DImàge 9750. On paper, it supports all expected 3D features and technologies. But on the negative side, there are a lot more issues with this card than there are features and accomplishments. First off, it's too slow, because it really does deliver on the promised 15 frames per second, if not less, in most games. Also, texturing filtering quality is poor, and some games look almost like they're running on software rendering. What's more, transparency effects are plagued by driver bugs and are often broken. You might also notice blinking or flickering textures, most likely in the sky and in all Quake engine based games. Lastly, the 9750 has no support for OpenGL, and it sometimes drops texturing in more advanced games that were released at a later time. Mostly thanks to its 3D feature support, we award the 3DImàge 9750 with 2 stars. The card is also a bit faster than the Verge, but it's still light years away from producing playable frame rates. It's also not a good choice thanks to its numerous bugs and relatively slow 2D performance. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and as always you can now enjoy the demo of 3DMark 99. Or at least its first half, because in the race scene, the 3DImàge goes textureless once more.